Hey everybody, how you doing today? You've got Blake Head here. I'm the SVP of Product and Strategy at iSalis. We're going to go ahead and get started and kick the presentation off today. I just want to start off by thanking you for taking some time to join us and walk through this process in iSalis to hopefully streamline your credit card processing down to one centralized place and really eliminate a lot of duplicate entry and extra systems that may be ultimately redundant if we can integrate this for you. So just a few things before we get started today, little housekeeping notes. Today's presentation is going to be really focused on the credit card processing, but we're also going to touch a little bit on some upcoming changes to the billing system, mostly around statements and what you can expect. So, stick around for that if you can. Also, everybody will be muted throughout this presentation, but we definitely encourage any questions that you have. So there's a little GoToMeeting panel probably hanging off on the right-hand side of your screen. Feel free to start asking questions and our team will respond throughout the presentation to those. Okay, and we will certainly stick on at the end to answer any questions that you have after the fact as well. Lastly, if you are not able to hear me or you're having an issue with audio or anything like that, please try calling into the presentation rather than using the speakers on your computer. That may help you as well. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. So again, what we're going to be talking about today is how you can integrate your credit card processing into OfficeEMR. So rather than having a credit card merchant that is separate from iSalis, where you might be running a credit card payment and then having to turn around and key that payment directly into iSalis, the integration that we're going to be talking about today really eliminates that and also creates more opportunities for your patients to pay via credit card. All right, so let's take a look at some of those opportunities here. So before we dive into the actual demonstration, I want to kind of paint the picture of all of the areas where this credit card integration comes into play. Now, every practice is a little bit different on what portions of the application you use versus not. So we're going to do our best to cover all those various areas. So if you kind of take a look at the infographic that you have here on the screen, you can see there's several different places where a payment can ultimately be captured. So for example, one place is in the patient portal or My Medical Locker. Patients are going to be able to see their current outstanding balance, see their statement history and so on, and be able to pay directly via MML, right? So that's just going to be one option that patients have. The other option for practices that are using the intelligent intake, patients have the ability to pay both their copay and their outstanding balance as part of that intake process, and we'll touch on what that looks like as well. You might have another scenario where a patient is actually walking into the office, they're checking in and they owe you a copay, or again, they owe you some additional money, and maybe you're not using the intake for your check-in workflow and you're just manually taking payments at the front desk. We have a solution for that as well. The third option, or excuse me, the fourth option that you have is to take a payment over the phone. So if a patient calls you up because they received a statement in the mail and they're ready to pay you via a credit card, you can take a credit card over the phone and capture that payment. And then lastly, we have the ability to accept payer payments. This isn't wildly common, but throughout the industry, you are starting to see more and more payers actually provide a credit card to make a payment that would ultimately create a deposit in the system. So we will walk through that option as well. But the most important piece is that while you're taking these payments, obviously the money is going to flow into your bank account as you would imagine, but it will also create the appropriate payment records in iSalis in an automated fashion. So for these first four, so anytime a patient is making a payment, that's creating a receipt in the system. The one exception to that is when a payer makes a payment, that actually creates a deposit in the system, and those things are just treated a little bit differently. So those are the areas that exist today. One of the really exciting things that we're going to have coming out, and we'll talk about this at the end of the presentation, is we're going to start allowing patients to make payments via email and text from their statement. So we're overhauling our statement workflow in iSalus and integrating with a new partner called Data Media that's going to allow us to have much richer statement formats, and they will then support the ability to pay via text and email. All right, and all that is also integrated with this same merchant account. So by obtaining one new, the company that we work with is called PaySimple. By obtaining one new PaySimple merchant ID and plugging that information into the right place in iSalus, that then unlocks all of these areas to automatically integrate payments into your application. Okay. So I am going to be sharing this slide deck out. It's actually attached as a handout inside of GoToMeeting, so you guys can actually open that up, and you should be able to download it right now. So with inside of here, there's two links that I think will be really helpful in the event that you'd like to move forward or learn more. There's the link to sign up. So this will walk you through exactly what you need to do to sign up to get that process rolling and to apply for a new merchant account. All right, and then once you do in fact sign up, then there's a link out here to the user guide, and it'll kind of cover everything that we're talking about today. So one point of comment on the sign up process, the group that we work with, PaySimple, oftentimes will work with you directly to understand what your current credit card rates are and try their best to either beat or meet those rates. So there's obviously a retail rate that is probably posted on the website, but you can certainly work with them to see if we can get that rate more in line with what you're paying today. The hope is we'll be able to migrate you over at your current rate and give you additional functionality. All right. So walk through that process to make that happen. So without further ado, let me go ahead and flip screens over now, and we'll actually walk through a demonstration of taking payments from all these various areas. Okay. So what we're looking at right now is we're looking at the iScheduler with inside of the application. Right. So the first workflow that we're going to talk about is just simply taking a payment as part of your check-in or checkout process. So as you're probably aware, you're going to have patients scheduled on the calendar. And then when you right click on an appointment, you have the ability to check that patient in or check that out. And depending on your workflow, you'll have a window like this that pops up and provides you information about the patient and gives you the ability to collect a receipt. Everyone's probably using this today to manually log these payments. And so what you'll notice is it's set $25 here. It's going to be paid by Blake. It's defaulting to my copay. And I could certainly go ahead and select cash and create the receipt and be done, right? If you're taking cash payment, that's how you would handle something like that. But in the event that you're actually using a credit card and you have this credit card integration activated, you'll notice when I select that, I get a new button over here called Take Payment. That's what's going to launch our credit card processing window and allow all this information to flow through. So you can see because the type of payment I'm taking is a copay, the copay box is checked up here. That's really important to kind of understand because copays get applied differently than general payments in the system. And it's important to know that this process just handles all of that, right? You don't have to do anything special because they took the payment via credit card. As long as this copay box is checked or unchecked, that'll make sure that the money gets applied correctly for you. So the next thing I'm gonna do is hit capture the payment method. And there's three ways in iSalus that you can actually capture this, go ahead and select which credit card you're using. The first option is going to be by selecting an existing card that you have saved on file. So as you take payments, you have the ability to save those cards. So the second and third time the patients come in, you can go ahead and run that credit card without having to necessarily take it from the patient, as long as you kind of verify, hey, looks like I've got your Visa card 111 on file. Is that the one you want to use? Yep, go ahead and select that and run it. That's certainly one option. The second option is taking the payment by manually entering the credit card numbers. So in the event that your practice doesn't have a swiper, for example, then you would be able to just take that card and type those numbers directly in, just like you kind of pay online via credit card. And then the third option is the ability to actually have a credit card swiper integrated in the workflow. So with PaySimple, if this is something that you like, they will provide you with the actual swipers that work with this integration. So as long as that's plugged in your computer and you swipe that card, that's going to capture the payment for you as well. So obviously no typing that information in that scenario. For my workflow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just select an existing card that I have on file, all right? Or we can go ahead and do a manual entry, whatever makes the most sense here. And so we can just enter those details. So type in the information, my little fake credit card here. Put in my code, put in my zip code, and then I'll hit submit payment. Again, if I wanted to save this off for next time, I would check that box and then that would make it available in that list for me. But I'm just going to simply hit submit payment. So now that payment is automatically made. What you can also see down here at the bottom of the screen is that's now created the appropriate entry for that receipt. So I'm not having to rekey in the fact that I took a $25 credit card payment. It's all just sitting there for me. And the other advantage here is I can actually reverse the receipt as well and reverse the credit card payment from this integration. So if I were to hit reverse receipt, that's going to allow me to actually refund that $25 back to that patient's credit card. And it also simultaneously backs out that $25 payment that's logged in the system. So you get both of those ability to take a payment and the ability to reverse a payment as long as it's captured via this integration. Okay. So that's just one avenue. Again, patients walking in and wanting to pay you directly. A second option that you're going to have is taking a payment over the phone. All right. And this process I'm about to show you can happen from any screen in the system and is used for both taking patient payments and payer payments over the phone. So it doesn't matter where you are. You could be in billing, scheduling, EMR. As long as you can see this little lock icon here in the upper left-hand corner, you're going to have the option to quickly take a credit card payment. So if you hit credit card payments, you're going to be presented with basically the exact same window that we just looked at with just a few slight tweaks. The first one is, notice I actually have to select the patient. You know, the patient was figured out when I was doing it from the appointment, but this time we don't really know, so you're going to search for that patient. So if we look for Blake Head here, it's going to allow us to do a search, select that payment. Maybe we want to take a $10 payment, and this time it's not a copay, it's just against his balance. So then we go ahead and capture the payment information. All right, we've got the card here. We already saved it on file, so we'll just go ahead and submit that payment. Okay, once that payment's done, you have the ability to go ahead and create a new charge, or you can view the receipt that was created as a result of that transaction. So when you hit view receipts, that's going to pop this window up and you can see all the payments that I've taken today through the point of sale system in iSalus. Okay, if you do in fact want to print that receipt out for the patient, no problem. Just go ahead and hit the print button down here, and that's going to provide them a paper copy if you needed with that information. Okay, the same exact process basically works for payers, but the slight difference here is that rather than creating a receipt in the system, payers create deposits. So that's the only technical difference on what happens on the back end. So if I hit payer here, right, I'll go ahead and search for a payer. Right, select this payer, put in $1,000. Then I would work back through that same process where I enter all the credit card information and submit that payment. Okay, again, that creates a deposit in the system, and then you would go be able to add claims to that deposit and so on. So those are two methods to take payments sort of directly where your practice is the one initiating that payment process. Now, there's two other options that are available to us to take payments, and those are going to be where the patients are really taking ownership of that payment process. And those things are going to happen in one of two ways. One way is directly through the patient's portal, or also known as My Medical Locker. So in the event that you're providing your patients with access to My Medical Locker, and there's another setting in the system that allows them to see their account balance, you can see that when I log in, I have the ability I can see that I owe $178, and I can tap this button to view my billing information, and that's going to allow me to essentially capture a payment here. Okay, so as a patient, I've received a statement and I've chosen to go online, for example, and just pay that statement via the patient portal. Again, there's more options coming down the line here in the coming weeks where patients won't even necessarily have to have access to the portal, but they'll be able to pay via text or email. This is the solution where they're paying via the portal, obviously. So what I want to do is go ahead and yet again, make a payment. So as the patient, I can certainly put in the amount that I want to pay. Maybe it's $178 if I want to pay the whole balance off. If I needed to add a new card, I certainly could. So hit add a new card, and it's going to give me all of the options to add those card details. Or I can just use a credit card that's already on file. So I'm going to continue to use the same credit card I was using just a second ago. Then I'll go ahead and pay that $178. Confirm that payment, and that payment is now successful. Their balance just went down to zero. Patients, because that's sent the data back to the iSalus record. It recognizes $178 payment, and it applied that money automatically because of the rules that were built into the system that you've built into your receipt process to auto apply payments. Okay. Patients can very quickly access their payment history. So any payment that they do online via their credit card, they can see exactly when that happened, how much was taken out, and so on. And then also, just as a normal part of the workflow, patients can access their statements from here and even see what we call the account history. So this is what is representing their current balance and why they have a balance and so on. Now, we've paid off all the claims, so we don't have anything, any claims outstanding that we need to pay against. So that's, again, yet another option that patients have the ability to pay. The last option I want to look at is actually paying via the intelligent intake. So for those of you that may or may not use this, just to kind of give you a little primer, iSalus has an integrated intake process where you as a practice can determine exactly what paperwork needs to be captured as part of a particular appointment. So if I have a new patient, if I have a follow-up, patients coming in for a procedure, we all know that those patients need to complete different forms. Maybe you want to fill out an ROS. Maybe you want to make sure their meds are updated, their allergies are updated. Maybe you want them to sign your HIPAA paperwork. Maybe you want them to scan their insurance cards in. All those things are available via the intake workflow. And in addition to those things, you can make the decision to either turn on the ability to pay the patient's copay or pay an outstanding balance, or both. So if you think about it, for example, a new patient, they're not going to have an outstanding balance, right? So we wouldn't necessarily turn that question on as part of our intake, but maybe we do want them to pay their copay. Follow-up patients, they probably do have both a copay and an outstanding balance to pay. So you get the ability to really configure that intake by intake, which is really driven appointment by appointment. Okay. For me, I've got a couple forms here that are assigned to my patient's portal. And the other thing that's worth mentioning is the intake process can be completed directly in the patient portal like I'm doing today. So if a patient can do this at home, sitting on their couch or whatever, but also there's a kiosk mode where patients can come into your office. You could provide them a tablet or some other device that would allow them to complete the same intake information we're about to look at today. They could complete that in your office as well. Okay, so just know that exists also. So I'm going to jump into my established patient intake, and I've just chosen a few things to fill out. So as I'm working through my intake, maybe I need to update a few things. Maybe I've recently moved, right? I'm in a different city here, and that'll all come back and allow you to review those changes or automatically merge those into the chart if you'd like. Previously, I've, on my chart in iSalus, I'm allergic to adhesive tape, but if I just recently found out I'm allergic to amoxicillin, I'll add that. Here's my current medication list. If I started taking Lipitor, 20 milligrams, I'll add that. And let's just imagine I no longer take these test strips. I've also been asked by my practice to fill out an ROS, so I'm just going to click a few things here. All right, those are obviously custom to your practice. Patients can also log their preferred pharmacy. So if I, maybe a CVS on Emerson in Indiana, There we go. That's my pharmacy. We'll add that. Any forms that need to be signed can be signed electronically here as well. All right, disregard that awful signature. And now we get into the payment pieces. So you can see that in this intake, I've chosen to turn on the copay and the outstanding balance option. So I can go ahead and make my $25 payment here. All right, I've already got my credit card saved, so I'm just gonna pay that $25. Oh, apparently I've been running too many $25 payments here. So it's got a duplicate, so we just won't worry about that. And then really the exact same thing with the outstanding balance. Currently, I don't have an outstanding balance, so I'll go ahead and move on and not make a payment there. And I'll submit that form. And now the practice has all that information that I completed online at home. You know, my demographics might be automatically updated. You know, your providers can review my allergies and med changes. We can merge that review system into my chart. I now have a preferred pharmacy on file. And obviously, as we're talking about today, the payments that I needed to make were also made here as well. Okay. So big picture, that is how the credit card processing integration works today. Again, we've got some exciting changes coming down the line related to statements and how credit cards can be integrated into that workflow as well. So I'm going to pause here for questions before I turn it over to my colleague, David.
And Blake, we have a question from Christine about the payment reversal when you're taking credit card payment in that quick pay window. When you do that payment reversal, does it have to be on the date of payment or can it be done on a different day?
Oh, no, you can absolutely do it on any day where that's going to happen. So if I were to go over to the billing system, just to give you a little insight into this, and I open up receipts, okay? Now I'm going to just do an advanced search here really quick on my receipt window so I can find those payments from today. Okay, so let's look at this particular receipt here that's been completed from my medical locker. If I double click on this, this opens up the details and then allows me to perform the reversal right from here. So I did happen to take the payment today, right? But the reversal process I'm about to walk through doesn't matter when you do this. This could be a week later or a year later. It's up to you. So when you hit reverse receipt, it's going to recognize first and foremost that it's a credit card payment. This little ID down here tells the system that it's credit card payment and gives you the option to refund the credit card. So if you did in fact want to refund the credit card and maybe this was just a duplicate or something, or maybe you charge them the incorrect amount, then you can refund the credit card as part of this. So when we save it, not only does that back the payment out of iSalus, but it puts the money back on the patient's credit card. Okay. In the event that, you know, maybe you gave the patient a check or something odd like that, you can still reverse the receipt, but not refund the credit card. So both those options exist today. Great question.
And an additional question, another couple questions from Connie. Can you refund only the whole amount or can you do partial refunds?
Today, you can only refund the whole amount. So that's one of the things that we're looking to do here in the future is add the ability to do partial refunds, but today it's a full refund at the moment.
And then for MML payments, how is that reported in the system? Which reports would register those payments?
Really, every report that captures a payment, okay, would register those payments. Now, the payment process in iSalus is kind of twofold if you think about it. Basically, a receipt gets taken, all right, so $25, you know, here's some money from the patient, that's a receipt, and then that receipt ultimately, as it gets applied to a claim, turns into a payment. So depending on where the money is, I guess, in the process, you would be able to find it in one of two spots. I really like the ability to see it from the receipt window, which is the window that I'm on right now. So if I wanted to, for example, run a report, when really this screen is both a report and a working task list as well. If I wanted to see all my payments from MML today, right? I just put in these three little details and hit search. And it will show me all the money that has come in from MML today. Okay. and you got all your totals down here and so on.
That's great. Can you open up one of those so they can just see what it'll look like for these payments? I know you just had one open, but.
Certainly, yeah.
All right. And is there a confirmation on credit card payments? You know, sometimes patients, when they're calling in to give these payments, they ask for a confirmation number. Is there anything that they can provide patients as far as a confirmation number goes?
Yeah, so if you were to print out a receipt for that payment, basically this ID right here is the confirmation information that sort of spans across all the systems. It goes to PaySimple and it would go to the merchant as well, ultimately. So this is the confirmation number. And again, when you took that payment, you had the ability to print a receipt. I showed that very briefly. This information shows up as part of that.
And is that the entire trace ID is what they would need?
Yes. Really great questions.
And do you know what user this would be associated with? You know, if they're doing a reconciliation report, something like that, how would it appear in the report?
Yeah, so when the money comes in from MML or the intake, that gets logged as as a user called admin. So it's really kind of a system-wide user that would the payment would get logged under. But if the payment was taken via the application, whoever's logged in at the moment that whoever's logged in and is physically taking the payment, that gets assigned back to that user.
All right, I think that's all the questions. Oh, one more from Chris. Does PaySimple do a single daily batch total for all credit cards?
Yes. So rather than basically as a payment, so we had an integration in the past where you would actually take a payment and whatever the rate was taken out of that individual amount and created a lot of confusion. That's kind of completely gone. You basically have a more standard workflow where I can't remember if it's daily or monthly, but once you are provided with the list of payments, that total amount is subtracted out there at the very end.
And then for copays being paid through intake, is this prior to their appointment? Are they able to make a copay with no balance?
Yes, they are. So, and if you think about it, generally speaking, right, copays can actually happen in the office without a balance. You're just basically saying, we know that you're going to owe us $25 because of your insurance. And so when you have the insurance record set up in iSalus and you say that, this particular insurance, $25, the copay, that's the information that's communicated to the patient portal of what their copay ought to be. And then just like if you were to check the patient in the office without the intake, you're typically taking a $25 payment or whatever the copayment amount is before you necessarily have a claim in the system to apply that to. Yeah. So this really works the same way. If that 20, and just to kind of bring this full circle, let's just say that patient pays 2 days in advance of their appointment, right? They completed their intake at home 2 days prior to their appointment. They made the $25 copay. The system's smart enough to know, hey, you made a $25 copay, but I don't have a claim to post this information to quite yet. So what that does is, and this is really kind of part of the receipt workflow, is that's putting that claim or that payment into a hold status. And then every single night for a period of days, maybe 30 or 7, whatever your practice is set up to do, we will go out and attempt to find a claim for that payment, see if one exists, and if it does, we'll auto apply it at night for you. If it doesn't, it stays in hold and tries again the next night, the next night, the next night.
And if you see that those hold payments change into error receipts, like it's been too long and nothing has come in, that's when you can refund that if they never ended up coming in, right?
Exactly. You could refund it there, or maybe a claim got created, or maybe a claim just didn't. You can see that the patient actually had the appointment, but maybe the claim didn't get created, so you just need to create the claim to associate the money with. That's an option, or you could certainly refund it if the patient never came in.
All right, and then one more question from Connie. So with that batch that's from PaySimple every day, you know, with the card amounts, is it possible to balance that with the office, with what you see in, you know, in the system?
Yeah, they should be one to one. So, you know, when we make a credit card payment, right, every single credit card payment that's made through PaySimple is automatically logged here as a receipt. So if you're looking to reconcile all of your patient payments, this would be the receipt report would be the place to do that, because again, receipts may or may not get turned into payments the day that they're taken. So the receipt window is the best place to go find and reconcile all those payments. I guess I will point out the one slight exception to that rule is in the event that a payer makes a payment via the credit card, and that would create a deposit which is separate from receipts. So you would have to look, if you do take payer payments, again, that's very rare, but if you do, there would be a separate place to look for that.
All right, perfect. I think that's all our questions for now.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for your time on this side of things. I'm going to turn this now over to my David, a little bit about the upcoming uh, uh, project that we have rolling out in a couple of weeks, and a little bit how that might integrate into what we're doing. So David, take it away.
All right, thank you, Blake. I'm just gonna pull up my screen real quick. Well, it looks like my screen sharing is not working, Blake. There we go. All right, so I apologize for that. As everybody knows, we've been working on statements for several months now, and I'm really excited to let you know that we are going to be releasing statements in our next release. Right now, this is scheduled for May the 6th. What that means is on May the 7th, the only way to bill statements out of the system will be the new way that we've designed. And that's a very good thing. So there's a couple things that we want to go over real quick just so that everybody is ready. One of those is the documentation. So if you go out here to Knowledge Owl, which is officeemr.knowledgeowl.com/help, I went to using iSalus, and then we'll just go to billing and statements. We have some pretty good documentation already built, and we're still adding to it. This will kind of get you ready for what's coming. If you go to the statement guide specifically, we have a getting started with the new statement process and a statements configuration guide. And what these are going to do is give you a couple key points, a little checklist to be sure that you're thinking about the new process and what's going to be or how you're going to build statements out of your system, because you're now going to have options. Fully automatic statements where the system will batch them up for you, send them out to the print vendor, and be done. If you want to review those batches, you can do a partially automatic or hybrid mode, or you can continue doing a full manual processing if that's what you prefer to do. And all that is documented and discussed in here with how to pick what's best for you. In addition to that, you'll notice number one in getting started with the process is have any and all relevant staff attend one of the upcoming webinars. These webinars are going to start on Wednesday of next week, and there'll be one every day for about 8 or so days, and then we'll have a couple extra ones for people that wasn't able to hit one of those times. So you'll be seeing, we're going to update the login page. There'll be a place to register there. We're going to put some documentation information underneath the login on the right. But if you want to go ahead and pick your slot for a webinar, you can come out here to this guide. You can click that registration link, which is this little here link right here, and it'll take you out. You can pick your slot and get signed up. And what that's going to do is it's going to go through, we're going to show you how to build statements. We're going to discuss the 3 different ways of doing it, whether it's automatic, partially, or manual. And then we're going to go through some of this setup and configuration just to make sure you're squared away and ready to go and you have everything where it needs to be. In addition to this getting started, number 2 is going to cover the statement configuration guide. Now, this is one that you cannot do right now, but what you can do is, starting with this number 5, you can answer these questions, which is going to help you to complete the statement setup screen. Basically sit at night, or do you want to control it? What's your minimum patient due? That kind of stuff. It's just a question and answer to help you consider what you want your statement process to be. So some of these questions are good to go ahead and think about. It's going to be really important that you go ahead and go through the setup prior to your first batch. So what that's going to look like if you wanted to send statements out on that Friday, May 7th, is somebody would need to go in, review the statement setup, ensure that it's doing what you want it to do, and then as long as you reviewed at least one of the guides, you'll be ready to go. One of the biggest things that you're going to see is it's a lot easier process than what you were doing previously. We're also importing the settings that you were using previously. So if you have like certain credit card vendors picked and certain rules, all those rules are going to carry over. And then it's just a matter of configuring some of the more intuitive features and design that we have in. But we're really excited to get this thing off the ground, and I really, really encourage you to go ahead and register for some of these upcoming webinars, review this documentation. There's a lot out here we go through and show the screens, show you what it looks like. In the guides themselves, if you're going and looking like the manual statements guide, it's going to go through and actually show you how to go through and create a batch, how to send it and everything. So we're really excited. As you can tell, I think I've said that like 3 times. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can ask them now or submit them over to the support team, and we'll be happy to work with you, answer this for you. That's all I have, Blake.
Thanks, David. And again, thanks everybody for joining. We really appreciate your time. We're going to hang out here for a few more minutes to answer any questions that may pop up. If you don't have any other questions, though, feel free to hop off. Have a great rest of the day. We will send a recording of this out tomorrow. You'll get a copy of it. And also, again, don't forget to download that handout if to get access to some of those helpful links and cover some of the information we talked about today.
We have one question. Connie's asking, will the statements look the same or will they be changed?
Connie, that's a great question, and it's actually covered in this documentation. We have brand new statement formats. So if you are printing, or we actually have a new statement vendor, either one, you will have a new statement format. So just a couple examples, the print format out of the system that will be a little more color driven. It'll have some different options. The detail is going to line up a little better. You're going to have a claim header with all the detail underneath. In addition, we can add the service facility. You can add the statement or the service facility. We can change the credit cards. And then beyond that, we've added a new concept of past due notices. So if I go down to the bottom, you'll see in your setup, you'll be able to set a final notice and a past due notice. And the way this will work is essentially what we're going to do, you'll go in and set when we're at statement level 6, we want to send them a final notice. And if we're at statement level 3, we want to send them a past due notice. we've had a lot of information back from some of these statement vendors. And what we found is that number one, you receive your highest rate of patient collections or patient payments on the first statement, or, and secondly, on the final notice statement. They tend to not really pay statement 2 and 3 and 4. So you're kind of just throwing money away, sending those extra statements. So we have some different concepts in there where we can help generate that money quicker. And with the new cleaner look at the statements, it seems to really, really work for us.
And Connie has asked how this would look for patients on a payment plan. How this would look for patients on a payment plan.
I believe that works similar to the system does now. I don't know that I've actually tested that outright. Um, my understanding is with a payment plan, you would get the same detail, and the thing that would change is the amount due. If they're set for a payment plan, the amount due would come up.
And then Corey has asked how we can add or store credit cards on patient charts for the payment plans, whether it will automatically come out every month or it'll need to be run off a report monthly.
I can certainly answer that. And David, I think we're getting a little bit of echo. I can certainly answer that. And David, I think we're getting a little bit of echo. So the way that works is you have the ability to today, you have the ability to store the credit card, and as needed, if you had a list of payment patients that needed to you needed to execute a payment against, you'd be able to open up that credit card processing window I showed you that was available from that lock icon, and then run that credit card that was on file. Now, down the line, what we're looking to add closer to Q1 of next year is a more integrated payment plan module. So you would actually be able to build the payment plan out in iSalus, assign that payment plan to the patient. We could auto run those credit cards, on a certain day of the month and so on, and deduct a certain amount based on that predefined plan. That doesn't exist today, but this credit card integration is laying the foundation to allow that to happen in the near future. So this, the concept of integrating the credit cards here is critical, right? Not only for your practice, but for all the things that are going to happen long term, right? All the new features that we're thinking about adding where patients may be able to pay via credit card, it's all going to flow through this Pay Simple process. Great question.
And Corey has asked, so currently it's running a report.
Yeah, that would be the only option today, because we don't have a true payment plan concept in iSalus. Different practices manage that process in different ways. So if, for example, today you are figuring out a list of patients that you have on a payment plan and you're charging them in some way, you would continue to do that. It's just how you charge them would be popping open that credit card payment window we showed you earlier, and then executing that payment. Any other questions?
Connie has asked if a patient is on a patient plan, will they see a final notice? For instance, let's say your sixth statement is going to be a final notice. If they're on a payment plan, would they still see that final notice if they're billed in that month? Does that make sense?
Connie, I would not think that they should, but I will definitely review that and I'll make sure that's the case.
All right. And David, I'm sure you can all see, David has pulled up the statement settings screen where you actually set that past due notice level. That's where you would set, which statement they're going to receive that past due notice and the final notice. And I think that's all our questions.
Awesome. Again, thanks everybody so much. We appreciate your time. Have a great rest of the day. Talk to you soon.